some of the recent activities. So I must turn on the projector. Sorry, if you have anything positive.
We didn't give you enough time, Nate, or?
Fail, I go with absolutely
Your title, one mistake again.
You're socializing.
Okay, smoothing out ruffled feathers in the back.
Trying to throw off some more work, I suppose. You're gonna have a little film on this as well?
Well, just a few slides. It's going to keep it there 5 minutes or less. So here it comes up on the screen.
We'll let it get brighter.
Basically, the history of Judicial Ditch 5 is that in 1921, a ditch was dug through several basins that we now know as Four-Legged Lake, outletting to Ruffy Brook. And this is just south of the city of Leonard. You can see from this map here, this is a district map that has a relatively small benefited area, which are those green shaded boxes surrounding the Four-Legged Lakes. The actual drainage area is 9 square miles. I have a hunch that the drainage area is a little larger than those benefited areas shown here, but over time then, since 1921, we do have evidence that the lake was truly drained and a lot of it was hay and pastured way back in the day. But over time, the outlet on the west end was raised at least twice, possibly more. Most recent time was about 15 years ago, and in no case was there really any administrative action taken. Watershed wasn't consulted, the county wasn't consulted, it just kind of happened. So here we sit in 2015 and we realized that when it was raised the most recent time in the late 90s, well, additional lands were flooded, the landowners were greatly affected, the roads were damaged, and so in response to that, there were public meetings held both in 2010, 2014, and the watershed then initiated this as a project team to look at some alternatives that did involve an FDR project that would address the Red Lake Watershed's initiative to help 20% flow reduction at the Red River. Okay, there's been some survey done both by the county. I think the county engineer is going to speak to you as well. So we've got good information regarding survey. There's been project team meetings, discussions with agencies. We are in the process of kind of developing a kind of concept of what this could look like if it wasn't a drainage system. And that basically is to modify the existing outlet structures. Right now there's 4 basins, all connected with culverts at different elevations. You can modify those to allow for a combination of lake levels, both low and high. And the goals of the group are to, like we're doing today, follow appropriate drainage law procedures, provide storage for downstream areas to reduce peak flows, maintain a base flow, as well as manage agreeable lake levels, and that means something different to everybody in this room, whether you're the county highway, a landowner, or a DNR, or a watershed. But we would have to come to consensus on what that could look like. The specific alternatives then, and that is partially what happens today is what the board decides is you could do nothing, absolutely nothing, which has been the status quo, but no one really appears to have that intent. The restoration of the original ditch grade is certainly an alternative. Management of fish and wildlife and or an FDR project is mostly what we've been discussing. And then there are all other alternatives on the table, including ditch abandonment today. So my recommendation at the end of my presentation then is the engineering side of it is to consider a multi-purpose project that would incorporate flood storage, and it would likely include a range of operation between pre-1998 levels and current levels, which is in that there's actually elevations there, 1423 and 1427 is the kind of what the invert was pre-1998. 1427 is what it is today, approximately, with an extreme height of 1430. That's kind of when the roads start to get threatened and landowners are getting flooded, and a project in that range is probably very, very possible endeavor. So.
Okay, thank you, Nate. Are there any questions from the board as far as the abandonment process that we're here at today?
Yes, I have a question. If we abandon the ditch, we better have something in place for it, and we do have something in place good for it, but the question is, what's the timing?
Well, yeah, and I think the timing is to get through this, to get to the next point is what our goal is here, you know. There's nothing 100% certain, I would imagine. Is there any comment from the audience?
I would like to talk when you're ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Come sit up here.
Yeah, that's fine. You want to say your name so we're for the record?
I'm Dan Survey, the Clearwater County Engineer.
Okay.
And I do have a letter that I submitted to the record. I believe you all have a copy. And Nate has it in PDF. If you want to see it on screen, you can bring it up. I don't know if I need it right now, but maybe the maps. You know, I really understand the Lake Watershed District's dilemma with the legal ditch system where the water level has been raised without your authority. Last time it was raised was around the 1998, 1999 time period. I was the county engineer at the time, and we used to be able to walk out in front of our culvert like a saw-tooth to clean it out and take care of problems. And then the water started raising after that, and my maintenance foreman came to me and said, "Township raised that culvert." And I didn't realize it was legal ditch. You guys weren't inspecting, you weren't maintaining, you weren't doing nothing. And the county was taking care of the beavers and removing beaver dams from their ditch system. We did some cleans. We didn't know that it was a legal ditch system. Well, it was about 2010 when I finally dawned on me it was your ditch. So here it is. Fix it. The problem that we have with abandonment is we object to it. Clearwater County definitely objects to the abandonment because we will have damages to our road if it's abandoned. The landowners have a potential for it to damage their homes in it. If it went to the extreme historic levels, there will be homes that will get impacted. The landscape has changed from the 1920s. There's roads there now, there's homes that if you abandon it, there will be damages. So legally, I don't see how you can abandon it. But Clearwater County is willing to accept another alternative, and from what I understand, the landlords want the water higher, and they don't want to pay into the system anymore, because I can see their problem. They had marginal farmland to begin with, and now they don't have any farmland, because it's wet, and they're paying benefits into it. So I don't think it's fair that they continue to pay into the system either. So, and that's why Clearwater County is looking at what the landowners want. We're willing to accept some damage to our road as long as the system remains in control of the watershed or some legal authority who can maintain the water to an acceptable level. And I did list those levels that we're willing to live with. Basically, if I just strictly looked at the road level, we'd want the water to go back to the 1990 levels, which was 23.8. That was the level when County Road 2 was reconstructed in 1964. I came to that 1423.8, look at the downstream elevation of the channel. My observation where we used to, our County Road 2 culvert was always dry, we could still walk out in front of it. And we did a survey in 1960 where the top of the ice was somewhere in here, like 1424 or something. It's in my letter. 1423.4.
Yeah, so that all confirms to me that the lake level was at that, or that outlet was at 1423.8. In my mind, you could just, the simplest solution, the cheapest solution, drop that culvert back to what it was in the 90s and what it has been historically for many, many years. From what I could tell, it got raised to that 1423.8 sometime between 1939 and 1960. I don't know. I mean, it's...
The 1998 is when the township
Yes.
Some changes?
98, 99 timeframe. It was, I started in 1998 as Clearwater County engineer, and it happened shortly after that, a year or two. After 18 years, you start to blend together a little bit.
Right.
But I know it was shortly after I started there. And it's Doc Payne that wanted it done so he could get water pumped for his blueberries. And the township did it for him.
Question for Nate, are you in any agreement with Dan as far as the potential for damage to the road and the property owners? I mean, this petition was put together by the property owners.
How many signed the petition?
About 57% of the land mass of the legal drainage system.
Yeah, I'm afraid they don't understand the whole problem, you know. If the water level restored to what it was in the 1920s because of inactivity of maintaining this ditch, the water could be up to 1436, 1430, you know, in that range. And Patty's house would have water right at the doorstep.
For the record, when the landowners, before they signed the petition, we had another landowner meeting in Leonard and discussed at length the potential project that's in hand, which is the flood damage reduction project, as well as the abandonment issues that could come with the abandonment. So I think the landowners are aware that, you know, like you stated, they don't want to pay benefits for something they aren't getting benefits for.
Yeah.
However, they do acknowledge the fact that there is a risk with an abandonment without something else in place. So they are aware of that part.
I think that's where going back to Mike's question there as far as in conjunction, you know.
And, you know, we'd be willing to accept that if you had something, a guaranteed in place flood reduction project before you abandon it, that project will be permanently in place and cannot be removed, and that it includes the complete ditch system somehow, so that it can be maintained throughout the ditch system. Because we get beaver dams upstream that block the lake, and then we get beaver dams further upstream, which affects Patty's property.
Are we somewhat, this was the first piece of the puzzle in order to get to the next step, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and for Dan's point of view, what kind of guarantee are we sitting here with the committee that has met as far as moving forward on the next?
This project, if it was implemented, the flood damage reduction component of this project work team that is in place, would have a mechanism in place with the operating plan and a maintenance schedule of this flood damage reduction project, which at the time it's defined, because right now it's not defined what the project scope is. But I understand there was some other culverts as well, what they call it the old railroad grade. There's some culvert manipulation possibly in that area as well. So this flood damage reduction project would look at the whole system as one, and then there would be a maintenance schedule and possibly operational criteria for each of these areas. So that would have to be defined in the project.
But as far as for Dan's point of view, what can he go back to his board stating as far as time frame or guarantee that this project moves forward?
We can accept the petition down and table it, and with stipulations, right? You know, that in the end, before we officially abandon it, the county and the landowners would have to be satisfied.
Or they would almost have to do that because according to the abandonment procedures, if any party can prove damages, that the system cannot be abandoned. Is that correct?
Correct. And I think what we talked about here is, like Gene said, probably having the hearing, you know, closing the hearing, taking it under advisement, and